I'm Zach Hack, and this is a follow-up to my use of RF tools control and Draconic reactors. So my son asked me the other day, how many of these Draconic reactors do we think we could fit in a single chunk? And I found a way to really stack them in here. You can kind of get two against opposite walls, and then you can kind of semi-stack two against the opposing walls inset into those two. Which gives you, four of these reactors in a pretty tight space. But we wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for the fact that we had a very slick way to manage these. There's no Open Computers or Computercraft mod in the Stoneblock 2 pack, and I've been using RF Tools Control to handle all of this. So I'm going to show you how that works in an area that is not quite this insane. Okay, here we are back at Reactor Control. And if you remember my first video, I had used RF Tools Control to shuffle cobblestone from that copper chest into that iron chest and use that as a counter for how much energy should be going to a Draconic reactor. In the intervening weeks, I have since been playing more with RF Tools Control, and I have found that that isn't a necessary mechanism. I went through a whole second generation set of reactors that was able to put a big screen up, and you can see the screen here. You can see, I'm shuffling tokens through these crates. It was a little bit crazy and out of control, and so therefore it was too complicated. It was much more than I could ever have anyone else set up and use the same program. So what I've done since is I've set up a new control room, and this control room is much more elegant. These processors only handle these displays. They gather the incoming information, and we can come over here and look at what any given reactor's status is, its temperature, its shield, its saturation and conversion. And we can go there using one of these dislocators. And then this is the shaft that we were just in with the 4 reactors. And so here you can see stats on all 4 of those reactors in a compact place as well. So today I'm going to show you how to set up one. I've gotten one of these reactors basically set up like this. And this is in its own space. And it should be easy enough to follow on how to set up one set of these programs. You can find the programs themselves on Pastebin. I'll leave a link in the description for the video. And then you can, I'll show you how to get them from Pastebin as part of this video as well. So you can use the same programs I'm using to control this. And then I'll show you in this video how I set them up. And then if you decide to work with those and go crazy and see if you can fit 50 reactors in a single chunk, I'll be super impressed and happy and feel like I've contributed to the world of Minecraft. So, without further ado, this is the setup of my reactors. I use a 4-space paradigm, 5-space paradigm, when setting up reactors. So that means that I have 5 spaces between any of the stabilizers and the core. This is due to the fact that previously I had made these too small and had some weird things happen with this block getting eaten by the reactor. Here you can see that this reactor is valid. If we right click here, we can see that we get the GUI, and that tells us that it's valid. So the first thing we need to do is set up chunk loading. This is a mistake that I've made that blew up a couple of different reactors where I would not have this area chunk loaded. And so you want to shift click again after claiming this area to make sure that the server chunk loads this. Otherwise, bad things are going to happen to you. This particular iteration isn't as necessary to chunk load this. But the idea is that you're generating power on the server while you're not logged in, and if you want that to happen, definitely chunk load this. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set power to the containment field. So here we have our energy injector, And I have some good details on what kind of numbers have to happen here. So I'm going to show you how to set this part up. The program that I use, or that I've written, has an east-west paradigm. So on the east side, it's going to do the, for crying out loud, it's going to do the injection of the normal day-to-day usage. And so the low side of this, or the high side, the low amount of energy injected is going to be 80,000. And the high side, I inject 136,000. You can play with these numbers a little bit if you want, but I would recommend against it. This is about as shaved and efficient as it could get. It's not maximally efficient, but the odds that you're going to get more efficient than that without blowing things up are very, very small. So I would recommend not screwing with that. Okay, so what happens here is that this node now has two of these flow gates next to it. This flow gate, where it can send additional signal to tamp this down, how much energy it's injecting into the reactor. And over the lifetime of the reactor, it will slowly decrease the amount of energy spent all the way down to 80,000. This is not, this might seem like a lot of RF difference, but it's really not in the grand scheme of things for this reactor. Here is what I call the shield pulse. So this is, yes, 1.5 million RF per tick. And there's a shield pulse that is a safety mechanism that if we discover that the shielding is at a redstone level of 0, we're going to pulse energy into this so that the reactor does not explode. And this is probably the biggest innovation in terms of what I have to offer here in terms of keeping things stable. So this node is called in. The channel is unimportant, but the node name is important. Okay, and then let's make sure that we can actually get some energy into it. And I'm using Flux Networks for that. Okay, this is the basic setup. So on the east side of this node, you want the regulation of the shield injector, energy injector. And on this side, you want the shield pulse, which is normally off, but dumps a ton in for emergencies. Okay, now over here, this is going to be our energy output. And this is what controls how hot the reactor gets and what the likelihood of it exploding is. So you can see the arrow indicators here of these gates. On those, they're going up into that, and on these, we're drawing out of one of the stabilizers. So we draw out of here. Now, these numbers are exceptionally important, and there is a convention. So on the north side, the number is 6144000. Yes, 6 million. Okay, on this one, we have 384,000. And the frightening thing is that I don't even have to look these up anymore. I've set up so many of these reactors that I now know all of these numbers by heart. 1,500. Now, why do we do it this way? This allows us to use analog control similar to how we did before on the inputs. We're going to do here on the outputs. R019. The node is going to be out. And again, the node name is important, including this capital letter. So it is case sensitive. So do capitalize in and out because I capitalize them in the programs. Now, this flow gate is going to tick up from 0 to 15 in power. And as it does so, more of this power is going to tick out. When it gets to 15, at the next tick of power, it's going to reset back to 0 and then go to this one. And the first tick here, if you divide this number by 15, you're going to notice it's 1,600. And so sure enough, as we tick up in 1600s here, this is the second digit. These are hexadecimal digit places. This one is going to be counting up by 24,000. I'm sorry, by 32,000. So this is going to tick up. And then this one is going to tick up in 4096. So I think it's 400,000 increments. So all of these have particular settings that are very, very specific for a reason. Now, I use Draconic energy out for these because it looks super cool. It's pretty easy to set up. And this flux plug is the output back into my flux network. All right, so let's set up our energy out. This needs to be an output crystal. And I'm going to connect this up real quick to these guys. 2, 3, 4. All right, now I'm ready. I have my inputs, I have my outputs. I need to make sure there's no limit on this. You can have a sort of safety setting here. So if you don't trust things, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to put 600,000 here and set that as a limit. And the reason for that is that if something is unlimited up here in some way, this reactor is going to blow up immediately. So we don't want that. So let's go ahead and set the safety on, and then I'll try to remember to come set that off later. Similarly here, we don't want a limit, so no limit. All right, now I need some draconium to go into the reactor. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is a maximum fuel load. Boom. All right, so my reactor is set up here. Now, let's start talking about the controller. So the control processor, you need this processor, and we have some parts. I usually go with the best CPU. It needs 4 pieces of RAM. And it needs this advanced network card so it can talk to another processor in the distance. And these are the 5 programs: reset and report. You can see it's missing an internal slot. So this runs on a timer, and it sends a report of what the status of this controller is every so often. This is shield pulse, update flow, update count, and master V9. Okay, now I should start getting feedback saying, oh my gosh, all of this stuff is missing. So let's start with master. To set up the master program, we use the first 8 variables, and I use these slots. And I need some tokens to go in those slots because it's telling me, hey, I don't have any tokens. So let me snag some tokens here real quick. Perfect. Okay. 8 tokens. There we go. Now it's telling me that this reactor is off or it's not getting any input. So sure enough, that's our master program setup. This is the update count program. Here we also need 8 variables and these 5 internal slots. The update flow program needs 8 variables and this 1 slot. All it's doing is reading and doing math. The shield pulse needs 2 variables. It actually doesn't even need 2. And these 3 slots here, these tokens account for how we handle the shield. And finally, the reset and report, I give all of these slots to. All right, and now we should be getting on or off, and not an identifier. So what are we missing here? We're missing a network identifier that goes to a second processor. So I have a second processor in my control room. So here is my control room. And here's this second processor. And I've set a network identifier. You set it to this processor by shift-clicking on it. All right. And now I can go back here to this processor, and we are fully ready to go on this thing running. Okay, I'm going to take the master program out for a second, and I'm going to put it down here in this slot because there's no need for this to be running at the moment. Now, let's set up the second processor. Okay, I have two programs that need to go there, and we'll just stamp those real quick. I had pre-stamped the other ones in case you're not as familiar with how this works. This is report v4, save, and plot v2. Perfect. Okay. Now we go up to that processor and we put these guys in. Okay, now I don't have any guts in this box, so I'm going to need some guts as well. Let's get some stuff to do here. So I need a graphics card for this side. I need a CPU. I need 2 pieces of RAM. I don't think I need a network card, but I always put a network card in these guys. I think you can get away without that if that matters to you. All right, so I have a processor, and it says, hey, I don't have any tokens. So again, I need to go here, grab some tokens. And these tokens are basically keeping the information that I used to keep in those chests. It's basically saying, okay, here's all the stuff that I would normally save somewhere. All right, so this first program, the report, needs these 7 slots, and the plot needs the next. Okay, now that last token slot is the name that I want on the display. So I actually built a little namer, a name token maker. So I'm going to increase to 19, and then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to print a token. You can do this in a wide variety of ways. So now you see I have a name here of this reactor, Reactor 19. And you can put whatever string you want in that token. You can put it Bob's Reactor or whatever you want there. Let's set up some screens. All right, so I'm going to go back here. And we're going to set up the screen pieces that we need, which I think I have in this bag. All right. We need 4 screens. All right, so screen number 1, screen number 2, screen number 3. I like these to be at the second size. I mean, it's a little... You can do with these whatever you want. In the compact room, I just have them at the main size. All right, now here, scan, 3 screens detected. There they are. Okay, so the next piece is the title slide and these 4 guys. We're not quite ready for yet. Text, this is reactor 19, large and centered. There we go. So now I know where we are. Okay. But I need to get signals into my processor now. So signals come out of the reactor. And in this particular setup, I'm gathering them from each step. Okay. Also use some red alloy wire here to kind of show, give you something to look at when there is a signal coming out of these guys. All right. Now we have the transmitters. You want that little blue divot thing to show the input side. The wire should go into that. Okay. And there we go. Okay. I have the programs in place. I have my screens in place. I don't quite have everything. Let's see. Okay, I need to set the transmitters on channels. Now, I have a convention that I use. So just like north, east, south, and west, the lowest channel numbers go here. 76, 77, 78, 79. Okay. And then look for north. Okay, so this way is facing north. So I go lowest to highest around here. Perfect. These all have to be set to analog mode. Okay, now I can turn this guy on. Cool. And let's do these guys as well. You might ask yourself, what is the significance of all this? Okay, so here's the significance. The lowest one is the temperature. Yes, I want that in analog mode. The second one is the shield. At the east position is shield. This one is the saturation, and that is at the south position. And this one is the conversion, and that is set at the west position. Okay, so all of that is good to go. All right. Now, screen number 2 is going to show the log from this processor. So click there, boom, I have the log displayed. All right, and the last and least fun of these is the setup of these buttons. And I always forget that I need this to get started. I've been anxious to get started here for a few seconds in case you hadn't noticed. And I'm not yet ready for that. All right, so there's 7 buttons. And they are set like this. Prime, usually use blue for this. Prime, increase, I usually use green for this. Now these buttons are set according to program signals on the update count program. So this decrease, you'll find a little stoplight signal on there that associates with it. And you'll find one for critical as well. These are all very slight variations of pretty much the same kind of program. And what they do is this increases the count by 50, this by 1, this decreases by 1, this decreases by 50. Shield pulse. This is the safety, oh my god, it's going to explode signal. But it's also used when we're charging the reactor, or at least I use it that way. Okay. And this one is reset tokens, which we need to do to get started. Okay, and yes, the capitalization and spelling matters on all of this. So you need this exact thing. All right, so let's reset the tokens. And I'm missing a node. All right. Net setup R19. Okay, now I have my 2 nodes. My controller is attached to those nodes. And we'll reset the tokens. We'll update the flow. You can see it says flow 500K RF out. So let's come over here. The power here is 8, 3. So you can see these flow numbers. And if you add all that up, you're going to get 500,000 RF per tick. So given that, that's a good test for us. Everything should be ready. Let's charge it. All right, you can see it's kind of starting to charge here. $136,000, 0. So things start turning blue, getting a tiny bit bigger. Then this saturation starts to kick in. Now, we can speed this up. I have plenty of energy in storage. So I can speed that up with that shield pulse. You can see that this rockets upward as I do that. And I get the end of shield pulse there. But I'm going to pump that a couple of times. And that... Oh. Something fishy is going on here. Right. All of these read 0. This is an important lesson. Okay, so what am I doing wrong? Oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong. And what I'm doing wrong is I don't have my redstone modes set. All right, so while this is happening, this top one, the redstone mode, we want set to temp. East, we want set to shield. South, we want set to saturation. And west to conversion. And this basically is the equivalent of these 4 bars. Now, as we go look at this, hey, my temperature is still low, but I'm catching shield and saturation. Let's do another shield pulse. Now again, all this is doing is just injecting more energy into the system. And now that the temperature is above 0, the master program is saying, hey, I need to start increasing this temperature by increasing the flow out. All right. And now we're at a point where this temperature is ready to activate. And there we go. Okay, now this is all running properly. So I've got all of this stuff hooked up. This is running exactly out, as you can see there in the lower right, what we're asking for here. Okay, so this flow number, this 502.2, you can see this there as well. Okay, so that's running. Now, at this stage, I could hit prime a couple of times, depending on how this runs, to increase it. But new reactors tend to be the most volatile, I've found. So I tend not to do that. I just let the program run and increase it until it reaches the point where it has some efficiency. Okay, so this brings us down to our last screen, our remote monitoring. Okay. I'm missing one little widget, which is this guy here. And I need to scan for additional screens. Make sure that my new screen is getting power. And we're going to set that. All right. So that's not too bad. Oh, wait. I'm totally missing something. You're like, what? How can you not see that? Of course I see it. All right. So we're going to grab 4 more receivers, which we can set from these guys like this, just like we did before. And then go up here to our display controller. North is that way in this room, so temp, shield, saturation. Did I do it? Of course not. This is gonna look crazy, right? Because it's like, oh my god, they're at 15. So it's freaking clean out. So you have to set these to analog to get the proper numbers. And ta-da, now we are officially done. Oh crap. I just remembered that we have our safety on over here. Remember this guy? Yeah, so we're gonna take this off. As you can see, our limited input is below this level, so this shouldn't make any difference. And now I won't get in trouble. That was a close one. Okay, I forgot a couple of things. The first thing is that I have a setup. If you want to mess with these programs, I highly recommend doing a setup like this. So what you need are programmers, one for each of these programs, some potentiometers, and some transmitters. And these potentiometers allow you to mimic the settings of a reactor. So I just dial these around to create this situation. And then I can test for the effects of any of my subroutines on the reactor outputs and the reactor shield. So that is how I set this up to do this programming. And the other thing is that I was going to show you pastebin. So let's go snag another programmer real quick. All right, here's one. So let's say that you want to copy something from pastebin, and you set up a nice programmer right here. You say, okay, do I have anything in here? Okay, there's nothing in there. So what I want to do is I want to come out here and copy this master v9 program. So let's go to raw. This is the program. I do Control A, Control C. All right, I come in here, and now that's in my buffer. I can do Control V, and voila. So I've now copied my program from the internet to inside of Minecraft. So that way you don't have to write this program because it's crazy. Trust me, this is the ninth version of this program for a reason, and that's not even counting what I would consider patches, minor bug fixes. This is like the 9th generation of this program, and the 3rd generation of how I've set up this reactor thing. So, this is where I tested my display. This is how I tested the other screens. So a lot of of time and effort has gone into this, as you can see, to get where I'm not blowing up reactors anymore on a regular basis. So I doubt I do another one of these videos for a very long time. I may do another short video showing you the 50 Draconic reactors in the shaft when I get finished with that. But frankly, I'm tired of writing programs in RF Tools Control for a little while. Feels too much like work to me, but it was fun. I've really enjoyed getting to this stage in Minecraft and setting this all up. Oh, there is one last thing. I tried to have a display here on this wall of all of the inputs and outputs. But it turns out that it just doesn't work out. So in Flux Networks, I'm actually able to see all this stuff, and what's coming in and out, sort of per reactor. And then this is my aggregate. So at present, I'm making 19.4 million RF per tick. So I can see each of these here as well in terms of what their real outputs are, just by kind of hovering over each one. So as long as you label the flux plugs, you'll be able to get that information.